and I have been talking now for months about just how close this presidential race is between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And now as we sit here, we are 2 weeks away, and a new AARP poll out of swing state Nevada shows just how tight of a race this is. Trump is up ever so slightly, but what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's a real toss-up state. And yeah, you're right. Trump is up by a point. He's at 47. Harris is at 46. This is our second poll we've done in Nevada. The first was back in June when Biden was still at the top of the ticket. And back then, Trump had a 7-point lead over Biden. So there's been sort of a net movement of 6 points since Harris has become top of the ticket. But boy, I would still characterize this as a toss-up race.
You're characterizing this as a toss-up. It really could certainly be anyone's race. It's within the margin of error. But when you look at the demographics, when you break down this poll, you see certain groups going for one candidate over another. What can you tell us about those demos?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one I focused on first is the divide between older and younger voters, because this is something that we've consistently seen. Older voters tend to be more Republican. In Nevada, they have I think a +5 party registration, or not party identification edge. Trump is leading among voters 50 plus by 7 points. Harris has a 5-point edge among those voters under 50. Her strength is really in the youngest age group, the 18 to 34-year-olds. That's the only age group in which she actually is ahead, but she's ahead by 14 points. Everything north of age 35, Trump has some advantage. The strongest being among those working age older voters, those 50 to 64, where he's got a 9-point lead. So, and we know that older voters probably have an edge on turnout because they are telling us they're more motivated to vote than younger voters. So even as we look at this poll of likely voters, there's still, some uncertainty as to who actually will show up and vote. And people are voting now in Nevada. But ultimately, what's the final tally going to be? And there's indications because of that higher vote motivation that older voters could make up an even larger share of the electorate. And according to these numbers, that would advantage Trump. And another big demographic, just real quick, is the gender gap. And I know we've heard a lot about that, but it's huge. It's a net 33-point gender gap where Trump is ahead by 18 points among men, and Harris is ahead by 15 points among women. So that's pretty cavernous.
That is a monstrous gap there. I do want to go back to those older voters because you and I have been talking about them from various battleground states, and state by state you have found that they are more motivated to go out opposed to the younger groups. What issues do they care about specifically in Nevada, and are those issues the same ones that younger voters care about?
So older voters, we look at a variety of ways to measure issue interest. We have a list of 13 issues that we read to poll respondents. What tops that list consistently in both Nevada and also in other battleground states is immigration and border security. However, if that is your number one issue, you're voting for Trump. There's few voters out there who pick immigration and border security who are not voting for Trump. So that is definitely sort of one of those base motivating issues. Right behind immigration and border security are economic issues. Inflation, jobs, those are big concerns among older voters in Nevada. And there too, Trump has an advantage, but not nearly to the extent that he does with immigration. It is one of those issues that is sort of a headwind to Vice President Harris. There's a lot of blame put on the administration as to the state of the economy today. She's not going to win that issue, but if she's going to win a state like Nevada in the next 2 weeks, she really has to do a bit better in making the case that she's better on economic issues than Trump, at least for a small margin of voters. Your next part of your question is what's the difference between older and younger voters? Broadly, not much. And so even younger voters prioritize immigration and economic issues. I think when it comes to the economy, however, younger voters do have a different concern. Their number one issue is housing. And the cost of housing is a big issue, not just in Nevada, but across the country and a lot of these battleground states as well. And so for older voters, it's more of the pocketbook everyday expenses. There's a question we asked in the survey, what is it that's driving your cost concerns? And for older voters, the number one issue by far is like cost of groceries and food. Whereas among younger voters, housing is a much bigger issue. And so that, I think, is the big divide between older and younger voters in this race.